name is Wesley Davis. I'm here to pump you up for Encounter tonight. We're going to do a few exercises before we get started, and you're going to like it. First, let's do some stretches. Right hand over the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And guess what? Left L over the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, serious part. 1 squat, not more, just 1. There we go. Ready to get started. Get into our exercises. For the first exercise, you're going to need your 2 feet. You won't need that anymore. Do some high knees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, your gold chain gets in the way. Toss that. It's alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Alright. In between, H2O. Always important. Next exercise. Jumping jacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright. That was one of the hardest ones yet. Alright, we're going to do some serious ones now. Lunges. 1, 2, 3. Alright, pretty warmed up now. Do some closing stretches. For closing stretches, gonna need this. Keep the sweat back. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1 squat. Enjoy the encounter tonight, y'all. See y'all later.
I have this confidence because I've seen the faithfulness of God. The still inside the storm, the promise of the shore. I trust the power of your word, enough to seek your kingdom first. Beyond the barren place, beyond the ocean waves. When I walk through the water, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. You keep the promises you make. There isn't one that is delayed, so I will not lose heart. Here I will lift my arms and start to sing into the night. My praise will call the sun to rise. Declare the battle won. Declare that it is done. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way. I am not afraid. When I am in the fire, I will not feel the flame. I'll stand before the giant, declaring victory. stay true, even when the lies come. Your word remains truth, even when my thoughts don't line up. I will stand tall on each promise you made. Let the rest fade away. There's a peace far beyond all understanding. May it ever set my heart at ease. Dare anxiety come, I remember that peace is a promise you keep. And peace is a promise you keep. You will stay true, even in the chaos. Your word remains truth, even when my mind wreaks havoc. I will be still, for I've known all along. My Jehovah Shalom, there's a peace far beyond all understanding. May it ever set my heart at ease. And anxiety fails to remember His peace is a promise you keep. And peace is a promise you keep. You are peace to the restless soul, and peace when the thoughts wage war, and peace to the anxious heart. That's who you are, that's who you are. You are peace when my fear takes hold, and peace when I'm feeling closed. Lose control. That's who you are, that's who you are. I found peace far beyond all understanding. Let it flow when the heart's under siege. All anxiety bows in the presence of Jesus, the keeper of peace. And peace is a promise He keeps. I found peace far beyond all understanding. Let it flow when the heart's under siege. All anxiety bows in the presence of Jesus, the keeper of peace. And peace is a promise He keeps.
Hey guys, welcome. I'm excited about what God is going to show us tonight. I think that it's going to be really, really interesting for us to think about these next few days as we anticipate Easter. So I want you to think about this. Every night, I tuck my daughter into bed. We sit in the little rocking chair in her room, and we read this Mickey Mouse story that she has memorized, and then we read a Bible story. We read it out of this Bible, actually, the Jesus Storybook Bible. It's such a good way to tell kids the story of God that points everything back to the gospel. And so the last 2 nights, actually, that we have been reading, We looked at the cross, and we looked at the resurrection. And then this morning, as I was exercising, which has been so helpful during this quarantine time, my Bible reading plan, I was listening to it, and the resurrection came up, and I thought, man, I love it in the Bible when we get to when that part comes up and when I'm reading. It's just Jesus has done for us on the cross and with the resurrection. And so one of the things I thought about was like, hey, with Easter coming, what is that going to look like? And so I want you to picture this. I'm sitting rocking with Rowan, and I'm teaching her about the cross, about the resurrection, and I'm doing that through a story that was written by someone that was interpreting the Bible so that kids can understand it. But then I'm also being able to share with her what I've learned about the cross and the resurrection and what Easter means and why we celebrate it. And I thought, man, this Easter is going to be different. It's going to be way different, but we're still celebrating the same thing. And I wonder if this is actually going to be a really good thing for the church. I wonder if this Easter we stop worrying about this photo op, and what we're going to wear and how we're going to look and what we can post to Instagram, and we begin to think about the story of Christ, the celebration of what he has done for us and his death and resurrection, the anniversary celebration of the world changing forever. And so I want us to think about 5 things this week, and I want you to kind of process through the story of the Easter story as we kind of look forward to this in the next week and a half. And so this is how I want you to think about it. I want you to think about Jesus' life. Really the 2 questions: why he came and how he lived. Why did he come? He came. It was not, we messed up, these people have ruined the world. No, he came not as a plan B, but this was always the plan from the beginning. And he came because our sin brought forth separation. And our separation demanded a sacrifice. And he was the sacrifice that could make all things right. And so that's why he came, and how he lived was important. You think about all his interaction in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All his interactions, he was bringing the kingdom in front of people's eyes. He was this broken experience, this broken life that we have experienced through sin. He was making all things right. He was restoring all these things. You saw him living in the margins. You saw him confronting religion. You saw him showing love. And when people asked him, hey, what's the most important thing? He said to love God and to love people. Like, what was his life like? Why he came was to be a sacrifice. And the way he lived was so drastically different than what we would have anticipated. So I want you to think about Jesus' life. And then I want you to think about Jesus' death. And that is what we're celebrating next week. Jesus' death. And really how he died and why he died. Think about it like this. He had 12 people that were his closest friends. And part of the story of how he died was one of those 12 people, one of his closest friends, literally betrayed him. And before he betrayed him, Jesus knew that he was going to do that. And yet, he still showed him love. He still washed his feet. Why would Jesus do this? To show us the importance of love. And this is all part of how he died. Then he was tried by night illegally and ultimately unjustly tried, beaten, and mocked. A public spectacle. That's how he died. But why did he die? You think about the scene in the garden. Think about how Jesus was pleading with the Father, like, is there any other way? But not my will, but yours be done. Why he died? Because he was going to be the sacrifice. Throughout the Old Testament, we saw sacrifice after sacrifice being made to try to appease for man's sin. But this was a one-time for all-time sacrifice that Jesus was going to make with his life, his blood, for our sin. And why did he die? It's because he loves us so much that he knew that he had to give his life for us. So his life, think about his life these next few days. Think about his death. And then think about Jesus' followers at the time. Think about what they went through, how they felt, and what they did. Jesus, the person who was doing all these amazing things, was now dead. Man, I would imagine there was some doubt in their minds. We see Thomas doubting. We can see that they were confused, that they were unsure about what was going to happen. They were asking the question, what now? What now? And then what they did was really interesting. Because one of my friends wrote this book called Saturday Nothing, thinking about the Saturday in between Good Friday and Easter Sunday and what happened. What were people thinking about that kind of stuff? Because it was the Sabbath, they wouldn't do anything. They couldn't go check on Jesus. All of the thoughts were going through their head. Well, what are we going to do now? Are we going to go back to our old jobs? What is going to happen next? And there's probably a lot of fear. Maybe some of you feel that way right now. Maybe you are wondering, with all of this quarantine stuff and an extra 30 days, like, what's going to happen next? How long is it going to be like this? Saturday, there's a lot of scary things that happened. And then you even look at his disciples. They just kind of went back to their old way of living. Some of them went fishing. And there's this great story of post-resurrection, Jesus coming and looking at them and saying, like, what are y'all doing? They jump out of their boat and come and follow Jesus and spend time with Jesus. So think about Jesus' life, Jesus' death. Think about his followers and what they experience. But then the story doesn't end with him being dead. We serve a resurrected king. We are resurrected people. So think about Jesus' resurrection and think about what it meant and what it taught us. Because his resurrection was significant because it shows us the victory that Jesus had over our two biggest adversaries, sin and death. We could never defeat these foes, and yet Jesus does. He defeats death and he defeats sin. He defeats sin on the cross. He bore the punishment that was meant for us on the cross. And then he defeats death through the resurrection. Death could not defeat him. It shows that he is victorious, but it also shows that we can be secure in the sacrifice that Jesus made for us was accepted. That the blood sacrifice, the blood that was shed for us, was accepted as a sacrifice for us. And we can have security in that. But what it taught us was that we can trust God even when we don't understand what's going on. The disciples were sitting there with their eyes seeing Jesus sacrificed, brutally mocked, hung on a tree, and they were thinking, this isn't the way I thought it was going to happen. How many of you are thinking the same thing? Like, this isn't the way I thought it was going to happen. This isn't the way I was going to spend my senior year. This isn't the way I thought I was going to end middle school. This isn't the way that I thought the summer was going to look. What the resurrection teaches us is that we can trust God even when we don't understand. And we can believe him even though we don't fully see the big picture. So what is our role in all of this? The last thing that Jesus does when he interacts with his disciples is he gives them this commandment. He says, as you're going, everything that you're doing, make disciples. Make disciples. Teach them the things that I've taught you. Baptize them. Serve alongside of them. Make disciples. And he points them back to this worship of God and love of people. When we love God and we love people, and we do that with someone alongside of us, whether that's through a video chat, through text message, through whatever, like, we are making disciples. What kind of disciple are you making? And the great thing about our role is how he works. He asks us, he initiates something in us. Hey, go talk to that person. Hey, go do this thing. And we just cooperate. We do what he's called us to do. We surrender our life to him, and then he sends us into the world. Those are the 5 S's of the gospel. Sin leads to separation, which demands a sacrifice. Our response is to surrender to God, and then we are sent into the world. He sends us into the world to make disciples. And here's the beauty of it all. We do our role. We do what he's asked us to do. But he's the one that brings the growth in people's life. He's the one that changes things, not us. So much of what we do and what we think is based around what we think should happen. And there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with that. What if we begin to say, like, well, no, I'm going to fully trust God in this moment and allow him to bring the growth? Because he is the only one that can bring growth. He's the only one that can make dead things alive, to bring light into the darkness. That's what he's called us to do. And so as we think about the resurrection, as we think about Easter, this anticipation, I want you to think about this. Easter is really just the anniversary celebration of what God has done. We are resurrected people because we serve a resurrected King. My 10-year anniversary is on Friday. And I wish that I could tell you that we had these great plans, this amazing date and these incredible gifts, but the reality is we can't go anywhere. We're going to have a great time. But what is an anniversary except for a celebration of something that happened in the past that changed us significantly? You celebrate your birthdays, celebrate anniversaries. We celebrate on Friday, my wife and I looking at each other in front of all the people that we care about and saying, yes, I choose to lay down my life for you. You are my ride or die. We love to celebrate anniversaries. Easter is an anniversary celebration of everything changing. So this is what I want you to do. This is what I want us to think about. Is you're in the chair. You're doing nighttime with Rowan, my 3-year-old daughter. And she asks you, what is Easter about? She looks up at you. What is Easter about? How would you respond if a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 30-year-old looks at you and say, what is Easter all about? How would you respond? Because that matters. Because if you respond thinking through Jesus' life, his death, his followers' response, the resurrection, and then our role, the anticipation that you're going to have when we celebrate together the resurrection, even though you might be in your living room and not with everyone else, you might not be in pastels, you might not have a really pretty dress on, but you get to celebrate the anticipation of this anniversary celebration where Jesus changed everything. That's what this is all about. For some, they might be skeptical. Jesus and some of his followers were skeptical. But what they saw happen the days after the resurrection was that the Spirit of the Lord was with them, and amazing things began to happen through them. So let's be a part of that. So I want you to think about, what does Easter mean? How would you explain that? Let me pray for us. Lord Jesus, thank you for what you've done for us on the cross, bearing our sin that caused our separation between us and you and us and the people around us, and your sacrifice for us was enough. And so my response is to surrender my life here, now, in this moment, every day, every moment of this day, so that you can send me into the world to make a difference, to be a partner with what you're doing in the greater picture of the world. So Lord, move in us. We love you, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure. We are going to jump on a chat after this on WebEx. Hopefully you can make it there. It's going to be a lot of fun. We love you guys. See you soon.
Before me, behind me, always beside me.